Imagine this. You stand at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the vast expanse of the world below you. The wind bites at your face. The earth beneath your feet feels solid, yet the distance between you and the horizon stretches out endlessly. It's a scene that should invoke a sense of awe, of freedom. But as you peer into the distance, something unsettling gnaws at your gut. The world before you is vast, but it feels meaningless. You've walked through life for years, pursuing goals, chasing success, trying to fit pieces together. And yet, with all the accomplishments and milestones, something is missing. You sense it in every quiet moment of reflection. You can't shake the feeling that there's something you're missing. You've been told, time and time again, that life is about achieving. First, it was the grades, then the job, then the house, the car, the family. You kept climbing, moving forward, always searching for the next rung on the ladder. Everyone around you seems to be following the same script. But now, standing at this precipice, you begin to question. What if that ladder is leaning against the wrong wall? It's a contradiction that's hard to ignore. You've worked your entire life toward goals, toward success. You've played by the rules, perhaps better than most, and yet you can't help but feel unfulfilled. The questions begin to emerge, unbidden. Is this it? Is this the life I was meant to live? What if the very things you've been striving for, the things society says will bring happiness and peace, are actually chains that keep you tethered to a version of yourself you've never truly questioned? You're not alone in feeling this. Most of the people around you, the ones who smile through their daily routines, seem to be doing just fine. Or so it appears. But deep down, you wonder, do they know something you don't? Maybe they've figured something out, some secret, some key to life that you've missed. Maybe, just maybe, there's a way of seeing the world that liberates you from this endless cycle of wanting more, of doing more, and yet never feeling whole. Could it be that the very search for answers is the trap that holds us all captive? And then, the thought lingers, like a shadow across your mind. What if life isn't about having the answers at all? What if the man who truly figured life out didn't spend his time chasing success or meaning, but simply let go of the very idea of figuring it all out? What if the secret to life is not in knowing everything, but in embracing the chaos of not knowing? But this thought, this notion, feels almost too radical. After all, every part of your life has been about seeking certainty, about understanding your place in the world. How could letting go of that search possibly be the answer? What if this man, the one who has truly figured it out, has learned something about life that most people will never understand? And if this man could reach such peace, why does it seem so out of reach for you? You step back from the edge, the wind now still, your breath shaky with the weight of the question. Could it be that figuring life out isn't about finding the perfect answers, but about letting go of the need to find them at all? But if that is the case, if that is the profound truth you're beginning to sense, then what does it mean for you? How do you move forward? How do you live when the very thing you've been searching for might not even exist in the form you've been taught to expect? You linger on this thought, unsure of where it will take you. But one thing is certain. Something has shifted. The search itself feels different now, as if the rules of the game have changed. And you know that the journey to understanding life isn't just about finding answers. It's about asking the right questions. The wind picks up again, a reminder of the world that stretches endlessly before you. You are standing at a crossroads. The path you've been walking, the one that everyone else is on, has brought you to this moment of reckoning. But what if the true path, your path, is one that no one else has walked before? And as you ask yourself this, you realize, perhaps the man who figured it all out didn't have some grand epiphany. Perhaps he simply stopped searching for answers, and in doing so, found freedom. Now, the question is, how do you begin to do the same? How do you begin to let go of the search for answers and find peace with the uncertainty? What would it take for you to embrace the chaos of life, and in doing so, figure it out? The answer is closer than you think, but it won't be what you expect. The paradox that lingers in your mind, the question of how to stop searching for answers and accept uncertainty, isn't a new one. In fact, it is one that has plagued humanity for centuries. The more we attempt to find meaning, to build a structure that will give us comfort, the further we drift from the truth of what life is. It's as though the more we strive for control, the more it slips through our fingers. So why is this? What is the root cause of this relentless search for answers? And why does it feel like the harder we try, the more lost we become? To understand this, we must look deep into the psychological and philosophical forces that have shaped our modern understanding of the self. It begins with the very way we are taught to view the world, the way we are conditioned to seek out meaning as if it is something that can be grasped, measured, and contained. The first step to understanding this hidden problem lies in the work of Carl Jung, who delved into the unconscious mind and the complexities of the self. Jung proposed that much of human behavior is driven not by the conscious ego, but by the shadow, those hidden, repressed aspects of our personality that we refuse to acknowledge because they don't fit within the tidy, socially acceptable image we've constructed for ourselves. Imagine a child raised in a home where success is paramount. The child is taught that their worth is measured by their achievements, their grades, their status. As they grow, they internalize these values and begin to suppress parts of themselves that don't fit the mold. The creative child, the emotional child, the impulsive child, all these parts of the self are hidden away in the unconscious mind, deemed unworthy or inadequate. The result is an individual who strives endlessly, constantly seeking external validation, but who feels deep down like something is missing. The very act of suppressing these shadow elements of the self creates a divide, a fracture in the individual's identity. They know they're not being fully themselves, but they can't quite understand why. For Jung, the key to resolving this internal conflict lies in integration, the process of bringing the shadow into conscious awareness, of embracing the hidden aspects of the self instead of running from them. The man who figured life out understood this principle. He didn't reject his shadow, he integrated it. He faced the parts of himself that he'd been taught to hide and, in doing so, found wholeness. But most people never do this work. Instead, they spend their lives desperately trying to prove their worth through external markers of success, work, possessions, appearances, without ever addressing the deeper, unconscious drives that push them to constantly seek more. Now let's look at the philosophical roots of this problem. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his work on existentialism and the will to power, argued that the root of human suffering lies in the constant tension between what we are and what we aspire to be. This tension drives us to act, to seek meaning, to become more. But Nietzsche warned that the more we strive for external goals, the more we become trapped in what he called the slave morality, a system of values imposed by society that defines success, happiness, and worth based on conformity and submission to others. It is a morality that values safety over freedom, certainty over chaos. Nietzsche believed that true greatness, true freedom, can only be achieved when we transcend these imposed values, when we create our own meaning, free from the constraints of social conditioning. In other words, the man who figured life out didn't simply conform to societal standards of success. He rejected them altogether. He stopped measuring himself by the world's standards and began to measure himself by his own. But how many of us do this? How many of us live our lives shackled to the expectations of others, chasing after goals that were never truly ours to begin with? It's not just about societal expectations, however. The tension Nietzsche spoke of, the tension between who we are and who we aspire to be, is not solely external. It is internal, rooted deeply in our psychology. The fact is, humans are not just driven by external desires, but by the desire for meaning itself. We cannot simply exist. We must make sense of our existence. And this brings us to the core issue: meaninglessness. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who saw life through a lens of suffering and despair, argued that the human condition is inherently one of pain. We are driven by endless desires, desires that can never be fully satisfied. Schopenhauer believed that the pursuit of meaning, the drive for fulfillment, was the source of all suffering. In fact, the very act of searching for meaning, the pursuit of understanding, the pursuit of answers, was the very thing that kept us trapped in the cycle of existential dissatisfaction. And this is the root of the problem you're facing. The search for meaning itself is what binds you to the very thing you are trying to escape. The world promises fulfillment through knowledge, through success, through acquiring more. But in doing so, it keeps you chasing a ghost, never allowing you to rest. It leads you to believe that you are incomplete, that you must find something external, something concrete, to fix the emptiness. This is where the man who figured life out found peace. He stopped searching for answers. He stopped clinging to the idea that meaning could be grasped through external pursuits. Instead, he began to accept life as it was, chaotic, uncertain, and ultimately unknowable. And in that acceptance, he found the freedom to live fully in the moment, to live authentically. The problem lies in the very belief that we must find meaning at all. It is this quest for certainty, for control, that keeps us in chains. We are told that if we just work hard enough, achieve enough, figure it all out, then we will finally be at peace. But the peace that comes from this search is fleeting because it's not rooted in the reality of our existence. It's an illusion, one that keeps us trapped in a cycle of striving, never quite reaching what we truly seek. The man who figured life out knew this, and he chose to live differently. He chose to embrace the chaos, not resist it. He didn't seek the answers. Instead, he lived the questions. And it was in this shift of perspective that he found the freedom that eludes most. But to truly understand how he did this, and how you can follow in his footsteps, you must first confront the deeper consequences of this search for meaning, the unseen traps that hold you captive. And that's where the next step of the journey begins. The more you reflect on it, the more you begin to understand that the search for meaning, the endless striving, doesn't just leave you feeling unfulfilled. It changes you. It shapes the way you view the world, and most importantly, it shapes the way you view yourself. The consequences of living in this perpetual state of search, of clinging to a promise of meaning that may never be realized, are often hidden beneath the surface. We don't see them because they've become so deeply embedded in our minds and in our society that they have come to feel normal. The first consequence is what we could call existential disconnection, a sense of living in a world that doesn't quite make sense, yet feeling compelled to keep pushing through it. The more you seek meaning in external achievements, relationships, or even intellectual pursuits, the more you create a division between your true self and the version of yourself that is trying to meet these external demands. You stop living for yourself and start living for what others expect of you, or worse, for what you think others expect. You craft an image of yourself that aligns with societal values, but deep down, you feel a growing sense of dissonance. You may think that these pursuits will lead to fulfillment, but instead, they begin to drain you. You become a ghost of yourself, performing roles that society has cast you in, roles that others will praise, roles that make you feel worthy, but never truly alive. The truth is, this disconnection happens slowly and quietly. It's not a sudden, jarring realization, but a gradual erosion of your sense of self. And you don't even realize it's happening until you wake up one day and ask yourself, who am I, really? The second consequence is the tyranny of perpetual dissatisfaction. This consequence is perhaps the most insidious because it's masked by the illusion of progress. Every time you achieve a goal, there is a fleeting moment of satisfaction, but it quickly fades away, replaced by the next goal, the next desire, the next thing you think will finally make you happy. In the pursuit of external success, you never allow yourself to rest. The pursuit itself becomes the point, and because satisfaction is always just beyond reach, you are left with a sense of endless dissatisfaction, no matter how much you achieve. This constant state of dissatisfaction is ingrained in our culture. We are told that happiness lies in progress, whether that's more money, a better career, more possessions, or a more perfect image of ourselves. Yet this progress is never enough. We are trained to believe that fulfillment lies in the future, that it will arrive once we've accumulated enough, done enough, or become enough. The irony here is devastating. The more you strive for satisfaction, the further it moves away from you. Now, consider the third consequence, the isolation of the mind. We live in a culture that celebrates independence, self-sufficiency, individual success, self-reliance. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with these values, they can lead to a dangerous form of isolation. The more you focus on achieving success on your own terms, the more you become disconnected from others, from community, and from the deep human need for connection. You begin to see relationships as transactions, as tools to help you reach your next goal, rather than as shared experiences that bring meaning in themselves. This isolation doesn't just affect your relationships with others, it also isolates you from your deeper self. You become so focused on outward achievements and societal validation that you forget how to listen to the internal signals of your body, your emotions, your intuition. You lose touch with the very essence of who you are, and in the process, you become disconnected from the world itself. The connections that once felt meaningful begin to feel shallow, and even the most intimate relationships are viewed through the lens of what you can gain from them rather than what you can give. But perhaps the most profound and most painful consequence is the erasure of authenticity. At some point, the quest for meaning, coupled with the fear of failure, rejection, or imperfection, leads you to perform a version of yourself that aligns with external expectations. You stop listening to your true desires and start following a script you've been given by society. The need to conform becomes overwhelming, and as a result, you forget how to be truly yourself. Instead of living authentically, you live by the rules that others have written for you. This is where the true danger lies. The pursuit of meaning, when rooted in societal values, leads you to bury your own voice. You begin to silence the whispers of your authentic self in order to meet the demands of the world around you. And the more you ignore those whispers, the less you hear them. Eventually, you reach a point where you can't even remember who you really are, because you've spent so much time trying to be someone you're not. The man who figured life out saw through all of this. He didn't fall into the trap of societal validation, of the endless chase for success, or of the isolation that comes from climbing the ladder alone. He understood that the true cost of living in the search for answers is the loss of your authentic self, the loss of your ability to truly experience life as it is, with all its chaos, uncertainty, and beauty. But it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to stay trapped in this cycle. There is a way out, a way to break free from the unseen consequences that bind you. But to do so, you must first confront the truth. The very forces that shape your reality, the ones that hold you captive, are the same ones that can set you free. The rebellion against these forces, against the search for meaning in all the wrong places, begins not by seeking answers, but by changing your entire perspective. And the path to freedom, freedom from the tyranny of external expectations, from the shackles of conformity, begins with one simple realization. You have the power to create your own meaning. And with that, the next phase of the journey begins. The rebellion. The shift in perspective that will forever change the way you live. You have been living according to a script you didn't write, following an invisible set of rules that everyone else seems to be following too. But now, as you stand on the precipice of understanding, you begin to question, what if this whole game is rigged? What if there's another way to live entirely, a way that doesn't require chasing someone else's dream? The moment you ask that question, a radical shift begins to take place within you. The desire to break free from the invisible chains of societal expectations starts as a small, quiet whisper, but it grows louder. You no longer want to simply succeed within the system, you want to destroy the system itself. The man who figured life out didn't just figure out how to win the game. He realized that the game itself was the problem. He broke free from the need to play at all, but breaking free isn't about rebelling in the traditional sense. It's not about rejecting society for the sake of rejecting it. It's not about doing the opposite of everything you've been told to do. It's about recognizing that the search for meaning through external validation is futile, and letting go of the need for external approval altogether. At this moment, you realize that the real rebellion is an internal one. It's not about fighting the world around you, but about changing your relationship to it. The rebellion begins with a decision to stop conforming to the world's idea of what you should be. Instead of chasing someone else's dream, you create your own. You stop letting the world dictate your worth and start defining it for yourself. You choose to live on your own terms. To do this, you must start by unlearning everything you've been taught about success. You've been told that success is measured by the wealth you accumulate, the status you achieve, the things you own, and the accolades you collect. These markers of success are shallow. They don't speak to the heart of who you are or what you need. How many of us spend years chasing a version of success that was never ours to begin with? This is where the rebellion starts, by recognizing the lies that have been fed to you. The myth that success is about external accomplishments is a lie. The man who figured life out knew this. He didn't achieve success by meeting external expectations. He defined success for himself, and in doing so, he achieved something far more valuable: inner peace. The rebellion begins with a question. What is your true definition of success? And by this, I don't mean the superficial answer that comes to mind, the one shaped by societal norms. No, I mean the deeper, truer answer that lies within you, buried beneath years of conditioning. Ask yourself, What would it look like for me to live a life that is aligned with my true self? The answer isn't found in external achievements. It is found in alignment with your own values, your own desires, and your own essence. The true rebellion is the refusal to live according to anyone else's definition of success, whether that's your parents, your peers, or even society's. But here's the trick. Breaking free doesn't require you to abandon the world. It doesn't require you to live in isolation, disconnected from others. On the contrary, the man who figured life out understood that true freedom comes from engaging with the world authentically, from being true to yourself in every interaction, every decision, every moment. It's not about running away from the world, it's about stepping into it fully, without fear of judgment, without concern for how you are perceived. So how do you break free? It starts with awareness, the ability to see beyond the veil of societal expectations and realize that you've been living under the influence of unconscious programming. You've been taught to value certain things, to strive for certain goals, and to measure your worth by external standards. But awareness is the first step toward liberation. The moment you recognize that these external pressures are illusions, you begin to free yourself from them. You are no longer a prisoner of someone else's values. You are the creator of your own. Next, it requires courage. The courage to break away from the familiar, the courage to say no to the things that don't align with your true self. It's easy to follow the crowd, to pursue the same goals everyone else is pursuing. It's much harder to stand alone, to chart your own course, to be unapologetically yourself. But it is in this courage that the true freedom lies. The man who figured life out didn't need approval from others. He didn't need to fit into any mold. He understood that the only way to live fully was to be himself, authentically, without compromise. It's not an easy path, and it's one that requires immense bravery. But the freedom it offers is unparalleled. Finally, the rebellion is about surrender. Not surrendering to the world's demands, but surrendering to life as it is. This is perhaps the most difficult aspect of the rebellion because it requires letting go of the need for control. The search for meaning, for certainty, is an attempt to control the chaos of life. But the more you try to control life, the more it slips through your fingers. The man who figured life out surrendered to the flow of life. He embraced its uncertainty, its messiness, its unpredictability. He found peace not in having all the answers, but in accepting that he would never have all the answers, and that was okay. And this is the ultimate breakthrough. True freedom comes when you let go of the need to control and simply allow life to unfold. When you stop searching for the perfect answer, the perfect solution, the perfect life, you begin to experience life as it truly is. Not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a journey to be lived. The rebellion against the system is not one of resistance, it is one of acceptance. Acceptance of yourself, acceptance of the chaos of existence, acceptance of the unknown. And in that acceptance, you find the freedom that so many people spend their whole lives searching for, but never find. The man who figured life out didn't need to escape society. He didn't need to fight against it. He simply chose to live differently. He chose to stop seeking meaning in all the wrong places. And in doing so, he found the most profound kind of peace. Peace with life itself. The question now is, are you ready to begin the rebellion? To stop living by someone else's rules and start living by your own? It's not an easy path, but it's the only one that leads to true freedom. The rebellion, this radical shift in perspective, has led you to a place of profound understanding. It has shown you that the search for meaning, the chase for certainty, and the endless striving for success are distractions from the truth. And now, the ultimate realization hits with a clarity so piercing it feels almost like a release. The truth is that life is not about finding answers. It is about living fully in the question. You see, the man who figured life out didn't possess some secret formula, nor did he uncover some hidden knowledge that made him superior. What he discovered, what he understood deep in his core, is that the very act of trying to impose meaning onto life is what keeps us trapped. The real secret lies not in finding meaning, but in letting go of the need for it altogether. What if the key to life isn't about figuring everything out, but about embracing its chaos, its imperfection, and its unpredictability? What if the way to peace isn't through achieving, proving, or becoming something better, but through fully experiencing what is, without attachment, without judgment, without the incessant need to control it? This is the final, most powerful realization. Freedom comes when you stop chasing answers, and instead you start living authentically, embracing the unknown. The more you let go of the need for certainty, the more alive you become. The man who figured life out found peace not in knowing everything, but in accepting that life is an ongoing process, one that can't be controlled or predicted. You are free, not because you have figured everything out, but because you no longer need to. You are free because you have accepted the mystery of life, the chaos, and the uncertainty. And in doing so, you've unlocked the deepest form of freedom, the freedom to just be. This final realization doesn't come as a destination. It is a constant unfolding, a journey that never ends. But with it, you begin to experience life in its truest, most raw form. And this is where the beauty lies, not in the answers, but in the questions, the journey, and the freedom to simply live. As you stand on the edge, looking out over the vastness of existence, you no longer feel lost. You are at peace, because you've stopped searching for a map. The journey itself is the answer.